China is not interested in a trade war. The focus of China is not on the US. This is a new trading system, a new globalization network. You shut off one channel, US and China, you reshuffle the other pieces, and they will realign. In fact, thanks to the blockade, internal drive has never been as high in China, and you have an entire nation going after the cutting edge technology. I think that the objectives of the US trade war, whether it was to reduce Chinese exports to the US and thereby reduce the bilateral deficit, or to mitigate China's global position in manufacturing, in that sense, that has totally failed. And I think most economists would agree that trade wars really accomplish very little except to hurt the countries involved. But I think going beyond that, there are also unexpected consequences, which is that it's really been a long march since the first trade war, where Chinese companies have already been braced for this new uncertainty. And it has set off a globalization frenzy among Chinese companies. If you look at the data, in many, many major sectors, the majority of these Chinese companies have either already considered or already implementing going global plans. And that would not have taken place as rapidly had there not been the first time trade or tariff war. Moreover, if you look at the data, Chinese exports really seamlessly flowed away from the US to other countries. And that is why currently Chinese exports are back at pre-tariff war levels, Chinese exports as a share of global exports, and have actually even climbed up. Meanwhile, the US share is declining, which means that China is even more integrated in the global economy than in the past. It's not just the US that is the only country with which it can work. It has a huge market in the developing countries. It is selling to Europe, and especially with Trump's incoming presidency, the potential to weaken the ties with the US allies in Europe means that there's an opportunity. There's an opportunity for China to embrace, to strengthen, and to reinforce these relationships and create new ones. That's what the US-China trade war has accomplished. You see, this is a new trading system, a new globalization network. The network is not static, it's dynamic. You shut off one channel, US and China, you reshuffle the other pieces, and they will realign. And we are seeing a lot of countries around the world, against this background of US-China competition, signing up new trade agreements, building new trade partners, reinforcing regional trade ties, so on and so forth, as a reaction. And this is also what China is doing. There's a reshuffling, dynamic optimization, if you will, of these trading networks or financial networks and technology networks, because in the end, it is no longer just US and China in this world. It is really a global economy. I think that for all of these tactics or strategies or restrictions, there are always unintended consequences to consider. And China is not a place where they would voluntarily just submit to these aggressions, but would actually react to it. I'm not sure if we look at historical cases that either sanctions or restrictions or export controls or all kinds of barriers to another country's progress has ever worked. In fact, most of times they have backfired. Look at the Spanish blockade of Portugal. Portugal kind of built an entire navy force, in fact, thanks to the blockade, and so many other historical episodes where you cut off something and that a goal becomes of a whole of a nation program, and they tend to accelerate. We're seeing some of that in China. I mean, for sure, there is a massive reaction to the technological restrictions. If you take semiconductors, China used to comfortably import them as much as they did oil in terms of value. Now all of that demand is given to domestic companies, which are seeing more profitability, more capability, more scope to invest in research and development. And it's really just pushing them or forcing them to accomplish something that they didn't need to achieve before. Internal drive has never been as high in China, and you have an entire nation going after the cutting edge technology. This is coming from central to bottom, but also bottom up, where the local governments work with private sectors and entrepreneurs. And you're also forcing the private entrepreneurs, which are actually the driving force of innovation, to do more and give them more opportunities. Unlike trade and investment, where there's a lot of scope for, let's say, back and forth, tit for tat negotiations, and scope for normalization to a certain extent, it is true that technological developments are going in parallel ways. Now, do I think that overall this is a good thing for US and China? Absolutely not. I mean, the world is much better where technology can be, to a certain extent, shared for the advancement of the entire global economy. But in this context, it is not as easy to just stop a very rapidly developing big nation with lots of engineers and hardworking people with big market access. It's not possible to stall it. In fact, you can spur them to achieve more.
偷偷告诉大家，我最近发现了新法宝 Royal Face 逆时奇迹系列，它有活肤露、全效精华，还有精华霜。尤其我皮肤比较偏干，所以我非常的注重保湿。保湿做得好，肌肤自然烹饪。提亮肤色更年轻，抚平皱纹超有感，而且气色变好。用心保养，每天都更美一点。美吧！偷偷告诉大家，我最近发现了新法宝 Royal Face 逆时奇迹系列，它有活肤露、全效精华，还有精华霜。尤其我皮肤比较偏干，所以我非常的注重保湿。保湿做得好，肌肤自然烹饪。提亮肤色更年轻，抚平皱纹超有感，而且气色变好。用心保养，每天都更美一点。美吧！偷偷告诉大家，我最近发现了新法宝 Royal Face 逆时奇迹系列，它有活肤露、全效精华，还有精华霜。尤其我皮肤比较偏干，所以我非常的注重保湿。保湿做得好，肌肤自然烹饪。提亮肤色更年轻，抚平皱纹超有感，而且气色变好。用心保养，每天都更美一点。美吧！